Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna make today's video a little bit shorter because you might hear a dog barking in the background. Sorry if you do. But today I want to talk about basically dealing with toxic people, what to do, and how to most importantly protect yourself and protect your energy, because I feel like I've learned that we're just going to encounter difficult people no matter where we are in life. I thought at one point that if I moved, I would be like free from people like the ones that I was dealing with. And while in some ways that's true, I might not be dealing with the same exact issues that I was when I lived in like a worse neighborhood than I do now. um, there's still some truth to the fact that I'm dealing with difficult people, but just in a different way. Like the problems reappeared, but in a different way. So I just feel like no matter what, we're always going to have to like manage our relationships with people. And unfortunately, not everybody is easy to get along with, easy to deal with. And most importantly, I learned that you can't assume most people think like you. Like, it's important to understand people might be coming from different backgrounds and have a different way of thinking and might have issues or might have difficult aspects of their personality at the very least. And a lot of us do. Nobody's exempt, but some people are a little bit more extreme, right? So, something that I want to say is that most of all, we only have control over ourselves and our like perspective and managing our own emotions and our own stress. And I feel like that's what it really comes down to, is managing our stress as it relates to dealing with difficult people, because it can happen in the workplace, it can happen in your personal life, it can happen in your relationships, right? So you have to recognize in your own life what exactly you are willing to deal with and what you're not. If it's just one or two things that bother you about a person and you feel like you can manage it by just maybe setting boundaries, for example, spending less time with that person or only seeing them in like a group setting, you set those boundaries for yourself. But once you get clear and you set those boundaries, if that seems to work for you in managing those kind of people, then do that. But you also have to recognize when it is just way beyond your like limitations with your stress level, and you have to just do what you can to maybe limit this person's involvement in your life. And I recognize that it's not always possible. And I especially feel for people who even deal with toxic people in their own family, or just people that they can't really escape from. Like they have to deal with them in some capacity. Maybe it's a relative or a friend of a friend, or like a coworker that you're just going to have to continue seeing. We can't always just cut somebody off, right? But there are measures that we can take in dealing with them. So like I said, managing your boundaries is one of those things, and also realizing when you just really can't deal with that person at all, when it's gotten too much, when it's taken too much of your energy, it's caused you too much stress, you feel drained, and you feel like it's really impacting your life in a very, very negative way, then, I feel like it's probably appropriate to cut that person off completely if possible. And in the event that you can't, limit your contact with them, maybe just pull it back and be cordial and not like have that same depth to the relationship that you might have once had. I think that sometimes works too, because eventually, the distance speaks for itself, and people only have as much access to you and your energy as you allow. So if you gradually pull back, then you're just revoking their access to you and revoking their permission to influence your life through their dramas and negative patterns, you know what I mean? So that's another thing that you can do. But most importantly, I wanted to say that no matter what, we're going to have to deal with difficult situations and difficult people, no matter where we are in life. If you think that, maybe it's just in this job, and then at the next job, if you're in a higher position, you're not going to have to deal with toxic people, and there's a likelihood that you're probably going to have to deal with a difficult person. It just doesn't matter where you are. And I can speak to my own experience, right? So I thought that once I left my old neighborhood, I wouldn't have to deal with difficult people, people with bad intentions, people who are just not right in the mind, you know what I mean? But that exists in other neighborhoods too. Maybe not to the same extent, but maybe it exists in like more high functioning people. Like people are just difficult sometimes and have their own issues. But when it comes to protecting yourself, like, you know, I feel like I don't want to promote isolation because I don't think that isolation is healthy when you do it too much. But I feel like cutting off people for your own peace of mind, if they're really toxic in your life, is a good move in terms of like protecting your energy. But you have to be honest with yourself, and sometimes there are just annoying traits that we prefer not to deal with versus toxic things that we just cannot deal with, like we've reached our limit. So you have to decipher that for yourself. And another thing I want to say is that, so this is the reality, right? Like that we're just going to have to deal with those things, but there are measurements we can take to like have a healthy life and healthy relationships, healthy friendships. I feel like what you do have control over, because that's something you don't really sometimes, but what you do have control over is whether or not you are that toxic person to yourself. So it starts with how you treat yourself too, because that determines how you let other people treat you. So if you're toxic to yourself, if you are always negative talking in your mind, and feeling very insecure, being mean to yourself when you look in the mirror, and being hard on yourself, never celebrating yourself for any of your accomplishments, being toxic to yourself can show up in so many different ways, right? But so it starts with catching the patterns of like what we're doing to ourselves that might be toxic, how we're not treating ourselves in the best way. And I feel like the more that we look at our behaviors toward ourselves and improve those, our relationships gradually improve as a consequence of that. Because the more respect and care you show for yourself, and love and acceptance you show for yourself, that carries over into your other relationships, and it also determines what you will or will not accept in relationships, which is a protective boundary that you create through the way that you carry yourself. Because sometimes people are attracted to you because they see something in you that they also see in themselves, which is an indication that you might be being toxic to yourself, that you might be suffering from a low self-esteem if you feel like you keep attracting toxic people. It's a harsh truth, but a truth nonetheless. So starting by improving the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we treat ourselves, what we accept, what we don't accept, that impacts your self-esteem. So that's the main thing that I wanted to say today. And I feel like, I'm really passionate about raising people's self-esteem, because I feel like low self-esteem is tied to just so many negative consequences, in little ways and also in really large ways. Like, self-esteem determines basically like the outcome of your life, how much success you will have, the quality of your relationships, how much you will progress creatively, professionally, just so many things, your health, what you think you're deserving of. So improving our self-esteem little by little is going to also improve the quality of our relationships and just the quality of our life. If you're interested in learning more about this, I would definitely start with journaling, just starting with journaling as a practice. And if you have no idea where to start and you just want a bit of a guide to learn how to journal for the purpose of self-reflection and raising your self-esteem, reflecting on your own thoughts, I have a journal available called Wisdom in Dark Paradise. I'll list it in the description below, and it's designed for people who have no idea where to start but would like to begin their journaling practice. It has prompts and also little passages written from me about things that I've learned. It's condensed, it's a very short book, but it is listed below. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely leave me a like, leave me a comment. I could make a more in-depth video about dealing with toxic people and give you guys a lot more details, because this is just the reality of life and I have a lot of experience with this. So let me know if you want to see that. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Subscribe.